Hello and welcome to another episode of Down the Track. I have with me my regular guest Abrar Aziz. Don, how are you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Kind of depressed after it's the end of the British summer. A fantastic summer for cricket. I think 3 months of non-stop cricket from one day to Test cricket. So kind of depressed. Did you catch the last Test match?
Of course, yeah.
It was England dominated. I think Australia made a mistake in winning the toss and bowling first, and then from there England dominated, which is kind of weird because we were just criticizing England last week, saying that their batting order is not working and they can't get Steve Smith out. But despite all that, they won the test and series 2-2. They don't get the earn, but series 2-2. So, your thoughts on the final test?
Yeah, I think Australia looked a bit jaded all throughout that test match. They had it just wasn't working out for them, I think, because first the decision of bowling first after I mean, fifth test match, you already have the Ashes in the bag. You go out there, bat first, try and score them out of the game in the first test as much as possible, and then you either draw it or or you win it. That's the only thing. I don't. It was surprising that they allowed them to bat, and then Cummins looked a little tired, even though he was running in hard. He looked a little tired. Just the bowling department in general was looking a little tired, and it was a surprising decision. And I think I'd go down to like a little bit of tiredness towards the end.
Yeah, fatigue.
A little bit of
But
fatigue. Yeah.
surprisingly, also there are some few surprising decisions in terms of personnel changes. They got Mitchell Marsh into the team. They got Siddle, where I thought that Mitchell Marsh was probably a good option, a fresh option. But instead of Siddle, they should have probably gone with someone like Stark or even what's his name. Who's the fourth? Patterson. Him or Stark instead of Siddle, because Siddle was carrying an injury, and then you could clearly see that he wasn't fully fit and he bowled pretty poorly. So there was either I don't think they took it lightly, because Tim Payne clearly said they wanted to win the series, not just take the earned back. But it might be a combination of that and just misjudgment in terms of team selection.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually a little bit surprised to see Siddle in there after that knock that he carried, and he was looking out of sorts completely. I think they do take extra care of Mitchell Stark. That's why they probably didn't want to keep him, because they had already the Ashes was back with Australia, so they didn't want to maybe use him at that time. But I was surprised Patterson didn't play instead of Siddle, because Siddle was looking out of sorts completely. Yeah, definitely didn't take it lightly by any stretch of the imagination, but. They definitely looked fatigued. They looked tired, and they didn't know how to get back after they were kind of down.
Yeah, and finally, Joe Denley performed well for England, giving support to Root and Burns, and someone actually stepped up, right, in the England order. And even though he didn't get 100, he laid a foundation and got them a good lead in the second innings.
Absolutely, absolutely. He did get dropped though, because when they played those
Yeah.
4 overs in the night before, simple catch to Marcus Harris, and he completely misjudged it. It could have been a lot different had that been taken. I don't know if that were kind of like just the morale of the Australians was probably down after that. They went in a little bit upset. They didn't come out the next day, and I mean, then Joe Denley took over from there, obviously. But it was probably that could have been a very big moment in the Test match had that catch been taken, I think.
Yeah, and a brief word on Stuart Broad and Jofra Archer. Like you said, it was back-to-back Test matches, so they must have been tired, and morally, their morale was probably down. Emotionally, they were probably feeling down after losing the Ashes. But not the series. They came back and they both bowled outstandingly well. Broad made Warner his bunny, and Archer also 6 wickets in the first innings, bowling brilliantly. He still didn't manage to get Smith out, but he bowled pretty well, and it says a lot about their mental strength and determination. They have the skill, but when they're down, they still know how to fight, right?
Absolutely, I think both of them bowled very well. Very strong performances by both. Archer was looking solid, and Broad, after a lot of criticism actually coming into the Ashes, where they were saying that he's probably not the best bowler and stuff like that, but he kind of came in, reinvented himself, figured it out, and he was actually their pretty much their go-to man for sure. So great performance by both of them actually for sure.
Yeah, and so coming to the end of the series 2-2, Australia take the Ashes back. England don't keep the earn, but they don't lose the series either. They won the World Cup as well. Australia semi-finals in the World Cup and then retaining the Ashes but not winning the series. Who do you think overall had the better summer? Who would be the happier of the two teams?
I mean, it's very hard to pick. But if you ask me personal preference, I think uh, I'd go with Australia. Even though England won the World Cup, I'd still have to go with Australia, considering their last year has been quite something for them. Like to come back from like losing to Pakistan, pretty much like being down and out to kind of making the semifinals and then taking the Ashes back home. I think they'll be proud of that achievement, and bigger things to come from them, I think.
Yeah, and considering they got Smith and Warner back, and to have that much, like Warner played brilliantly in the World Cup, and then Smith in the Test matches, to get that immediate effect, they must be really happy, right? And Tim Payne leading the side, what the side he had last year, and to now, I'm sure he would be satisfied in that sense.
Absolutely, I think Tim Payne, although completely off form with the bat for himself, he led the team actually quite brilliantly. I think he was making majority of the right decisions except the DRS reviews. Majority other decisions were quite. I like. Was very happy with a few things that he did, and of course Steve Smith in the kind of form that he is, and Warner in the one days kind of batting well. Those two coming back kind of lifted them, and they've gone from strength to strength from there.
I'd like to counter that. For me, I think it was England would be more satisfied. I know they didn't win the Ashes. Ashes means a lot in English and Australian cricket. It means a huge deal. But technically, they didn't lose either. It's just that because they lost the previous Ashes, they didn't retain it. And also, if you now 4 years back when what's his name Morgan and Bayliss took over the England team, what was their main goal? The main goal was to fix ODI cricket, right? And
Yeah.
their goal was to challenge for the World Cup. They were the favorites, and then they went on to win the World Cup. And then, yes, the Ashes, you could say they were fatigued. There's a lot of criticism in their batting order in the Ashes, especially Jason Roy and Joe Root not performing to their potential. And then the likes of Butler and Bairstow also not performing. But having said that and criticizing so much about their batting, they still tied the series. They didn't lose the series. Yes, everyone would want to win both Ashes and the World Cup. That would be a perfect summer, but not everything is perfect in life. But just compared to Australia, I think they beat Australia in the semi-final of a World Cup, which has never happened before. Australia dominates World Cups. Let it be in England, let it be in Australia. They always dominate World Cups. So this time they beat Australia in a semi-final, went on to win the final. I'll tell you another strange fact. England technically didn't win or lose anything this summer, and they still won or lost something. They tied both thing, and they lost the Ashes and they won the World Cup. But if you just see the overall situation, having the World Cup in the bag, not losing the Ashes, the Jofra Archer coming in front, and the way he's displayed his bowling both in Test and in the ODIs, and then just the intensity which they've played both series back to back series, I think England will be the more happier of the two teams.
I mean, yeah, like I said, it's based off of opinion at this point. I think both
Yeah.
of them had an exceptional summer. It was just very close, 90 very close for me. Uh, I just think with the way Australia was down and out pretty much last year when they had that incident in their with Steve Smith and Warner and Bancroft being banned for a full year, and for them to come back, and like pretty much right after that, Australia was losing everything. They were like. Pretty much a lot of people had written them off for the World Cup anyway. Like they were not even going to make the top four. Those were the kind of discussions that were developing. For them to kind of come back, for Finch to take this team to lead them, to kind of bring back the old Australia of old that we know and we've become used to. For them to take it to the semifinals, unfortunately, of course, lost over there, and then to take that into the Ashes and be able to retain it. Although, like you said, it's a 2-2. They didn't lose or win the series, but
Yeah.
they got the Ashes back. So
I think that's a
for
very
them,
good point, because
yeah,
getting the Ashes back, playing in England, if you consider even with Smith and Warner back in the team, you didn't know how they were going to perform. No one knew.
correct,
Everyone was criticizing them, like suddenly getting fast track to the team after the ban because they'll be out of shape and everything. But they just fitted in, which is not an easy thing. We say that it's
absolutely.
Smith is the greatest Test batsman in the world and everything, but nobody would have thought last year that he'd give this kind of Ashes performance, right? Like 770 runs, and then Warner, like one of the top scorers in the World Cup, I think out of the top three or top five batsmen. So you say that, yeah, they make a whole lot difference to the team, but you wouldn't expect them to perform at this level.
Absolutely. I think Warner's first game back into kind of professional cricket was with the Sunrisers when he kind of came in and scored that quickfire 50. He just looked like he had never taken a break from cricket. He came in, he performed well for Sunrisers. He then after that he went into the World Cup and performed well over there. Of course, he had a pretty sad Ashes, and I think he let Broad get into his head, and he just kept getting out to him, whatever. But Steve Smith started a little bit slowly, but what a amazing Ashes! Like I have no words to explain how good he was
Yeah,
in this
I think they
Ashes.
switched to both roles, right? Warner and
Yeah,
Smith,
yeah.
they switched roles and till the
Yeah,
end. Yeah,
pretty much because he started off and then kind of
yeah,
went down and he kind of slowed down,
yeah,
slowly started and Smith missed a Test match and he has 750 runs, like
yeah,
744. And imagine just I'm thinking he would have scored that 1,000 if he had that Test match as well. I'm
yeah.
just like,
And
and
one thing I'd give him is that, like, if it was in Australia, I would say, like, Australian conditions and everything, he's familiar, even if he's out of
yeah,
cricket. But he's been out of cricket and he hasn't played in England, right, in such a
yeah,
long time.
yeah, in a
Whereas
long
all these
time.
guys are playing county cricket and stuff. Even like Labishane was playing county cricket before
Yeah.
during the World Cup and everything. But
Yeah.
Steve Smith had no such practice, and in English conditions where the ball is moving, I'd give a lot of credit to him.
And to and some good bowling by Archer, Broad. They
Yeah,
were
yeah.
they were all looking good. Like I mean, Vokes was good. He kind of was playing well as well. Uh, uh, Jack Leach was spinning the ball on day five, but he was like consistent. He was century after double century after fifties. He was incredible, man. Like what an Ashes. I mean, definitely the best Test batsman. I don't think anyone's coming close to now.
Yeah, if he wasn't
Only
in the
in terms of
team,
Test.
if you take away his performance, Australia wouldn't have won the Ashes. They wouldn't have. I mean, they wouldn't have drawn the Ashes either. They would have lost the series.
I think
That's
so, but I also think that if you taken away Stokes from England, that
yeah,
same kind of situation would. So I guess it's hard to take away one person from a team. Of course, that man of the series for Australia was Steve Smith, and for England was Stokes. I think
So let me ask you a
over.
harder question. Which performance, in your opinion, was better? Steve Smith's double century at Old Trafford, which got the Ashes back, or Stokes' magnificent innings at Leeds?
I it's very hard to take away from that innings in Leeds. I mean, like to play with the number 11 uh, batsman at Jack Leach, who we've not heard of, and him removing his glasses, cleaning his glasses all the time, to get to 75 runs in which he scored one and or two, I think, and the rest was scored by Stokesy. Uh, it's hard to. I think that was the performance of the Ashes. I think,
Yeah,
even
that's what
though
I was
Steve
getting
Smith,
to because
yeah,
those two are those two
I
were
think,
the standout performances. So I was
yeah.
just asking you to pick one out of the two because the double
Yeah, I
hundred was
think
important as well, right?
yeah. Overall series, I think Steve Smith takes it, but I think only if you take
Yeah,
only
just one
one
performance.
specific
Yeah.
performance, I think Stokes gets that for sure.
Stokes gets that because of the like. I don't think we've seen something like that, and
Yeah,
also the crowd. Like Kusal Pereira scored a similar innings, like we said
yeah.
before, but the crowd and the intensity and everything, and
And Ashes on the line, biggest
Ashes on the line.
Test series out there, I think, at this point.
Yeah, and like you can't ignore the luck factor, but also you can't give that a reason because even Smith, I think in his double century when he was on 100 odd or like just before his century, Leach got him out of a no ball.
Yeah,
Stokes took the catch. He was in his early
yeah.
hundreds, I think. So
No, I think it was before his 100. No, I think it was
yeah,
before his
one of
100.
the two, but he wasn't
Yeah,
nowhere close to the double century. So if
yeah,
he was
absolutely.
out then and Australia tumbled, I think England could have gone on to draw that test match because they wouldn't have
Yes.
to like a 480 target. I mean, like the target would be less, and they probably would have gotten a slight lead as well if Smith got out at that
Yeah.
time. So that's one factor. Like, but even Stokes was lucky, but you can't take away from the sheer brilliance of that innings.
Yeah, I mean he was clearing the park. I mean, I think without a shadow of a doubt, I think Stokes takes that performance of the Ashes trophy for me.
And for you, the man of the series for Australia, not if cancel Steve Smith, like ignoring him.
Labuschagne, I think, because he came in kind of no one knew about him. He kind of came in just to for an injured Steve Smith, cemented his position and got Travis Head, I think, left, and I think it was Travis Head. No, did that got out for him,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
was it? Yeah. So I think uh, it's good to see him and Steve Smith take that number three, number
Number four,
four
yeah, looks solid now.
position, and also I think Matthew Wade came in and scored two centuries in the Ashes. That's a commendable performance as well over there.
Yeah, I don't
So I think
disagree with you, but yeah, sorry, what were you saying?
So I think it's both of them. It's hard to pick one from those two. I think it would have been. I would have given it to both of them.
I don't disagree with you, but I would go for Pat Cummins just because he's been working so hard. I watched him closely in the India series, at home in Australia, the Test match series, and he was bowling brilliant. Like his lines were tight, and he was bowling accurate. He was bowling with good pace, and even here, he was bowling with very good pace. He got rewarded a few times, but just the way he puts pressure, it gives other bowlers a chance to get wickets. He creates chances for the other end as well, not just for himself. He could go wicketless, but just his line and length and his persistent, accurate bowling, it just makes it very tough for the batsman. And I think he put a lot of pressure on England this time. That ball he bowled to Joe Root in Old Trafford in the second innings, it came in and then zipped out and clipped off stump. When England were, remember when he took two balls? So I think that was the ball of the Ashes, and it's just not the ball of the Ashes. Behind that is a lot of hard work and a lot of consistency and accuracy. So for me, it's Pat Cummins. But England wise, who would you go for, barring Ben Stokes?
I think has to be Jofra, and again I have two people, Jofra and Broad for me.
Yeah,
because,
the same. I don't disagree with you.
It's kind of hard to pick one of those two because both of them have been immense for England.
Yeah, because if you think of it, one of the reasons why England tied is because of those two, right? Like they could have easily lost this Test match. Even Butler scored it was a very important knock in this Test match with Leach. Leach again was like hanging in there. And they got a decent score, but even then, if Jofra Archer didn't take that 6 for, it would have been difficult. If Australia got the slightest of leads, it would have been difficult for England. So you have to give it to them for pulling it back. 2-2, it doesn't look as bad as 3-1, right?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think they bowled very well, and I'm very intrigued to see how England, the ECB, takes care of Jofra Archer moving forward. He's a youngster. You saw a bit of him getting frustrated.
Yeah.
When Joe Root asked him to bowl around the wicket in the fourth Test, I think it was. You saw him have his moments of frustration or his moments of anger where he was kind of all around the place. But we know what a threat he can be when he has his mind in the right place.
Yeah.
So I'll be very intrigued to see how they take care of him, how the captains, Joe Root right now moving forward. I think Ian Morgan in the ODIs and the T20s, how they take care of him will be very interesting.
That's a very good point, because Joe Root actually, I noticed that whenever England was struggling, he gave him the ball, and he used to bowl very long spells, which he shouldn't have. It's better that if Archer comes in short bursts in a Test match. Yeah. So I don't think he was handling him in the best way in that sense, but he just thought that this is the guy who's going to get me wickets. But if he's going to keep him like that, then definitely has to skip some limited over matches, because he won't be able to survive otherwise in terms of injuries. Because look at Jasprit Bumrah, we praise him so much. We say he's one of the best bowlers in the world. But if you notice, he's not playing in the current T20 series. Yeah. He didn't play in the T20 and ODIs against West Indies. So they are wrapping him in cotton wool. Like, even though it doesn't look obvious, because India do play a lot of cricket. But even then, he picks and chooses his matches, whether it's him or the team management. He's not playing every game. So they need to do something like that with Archer, because otherwise he'll burn out quickly. Right now, he looks like the most exciting bowler right now in the world.
I think so. I think for he's been very good, and like you were right. I think short bursts for Archer is better than bowling eight over spells for him, because it doesn't really work out for him like that. And I think Joe Root kind of accepted it too, because he said that he's also learning how to take care of Archer and everything. So I think this was his first solid series. I think they'll learn, and they'll probably get better.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, he can bowl those long spells. It's not that he doesn't have the stamina. Like, a lot of people are questioning because he played a lot of T20s. They're questioning his stamina, and can he play the 5-ball red ball game, the 5-day game, sorry. And he proves clearly that he's a Test match cricketer. It's just that to take care of him and use him as effectively, you have to use him in short spells. You need to rest him when not required, and you have to be careful. That's Root and the team management's job, not his job. His job is to bowl whenever he gets the ball.
Exactly, that's it. And it's good to see a lot more teams doing this. I think India is taking care of Bumrah, Australia is taking care of Stark, South Africa is starting to understand and take care of Rabada. And now if England does the same with Archer, it's like you have the best for the big tournaments, and that's what you want to see, right? You don't want to see Jasprit Bumrah bowl against a weaker West Indies team and pick up 6 wickets. That's not what you want to see. You want to see him bowl against the stronger teams.
Yeah.
And in red ball cricket, Test cricket, to be able to perform like that is what we want to see. Or, for example, Archer bowling the 6 wickets that he took and that kind of stuff. Yeah, small note on Trevor Bayliss over here. I think he took the 4-year project very seriously, and he's come out and really shown the world what a coach he can be. And to win the World Cup was like the icing on the cake for him. But he's one of the coaches to look out for, and Sunrisers have gotten him, and it's very exciting to see how he goes around his job over there.
Yeah, because the way the British media were portraying it, like the articles which I read and stuff, like from England, and the way even ex-cricket commentators like Vaughan and Jeffrey Boycott talking and stuff, it felt like end of the world after the Old Trafford Test match, right? But that's just because they just have a separate passion for Test cricket. For them, Test cricket is everything. But if
And
you think,
especially the Ashes.
yeah,
I
but if
think.
you think of it now, the job that is left for the new coach, they need to improve on Test cricket, no doubt. But that margin of difference is not as much as when Bayliss took over for the ODI team. There's a huge gap to fill at that time. There was a longer road. To be honest, right now the
Yeah.
Test cricket can be changed. A few things, especially in the batting order, if you just get a couple of good county Test cricketers, especially in the top four for the top four positions.
Yeah.
I think they can fix that. But for the ODIs, there was a huge. They were in a mess, right, when Bayliss came. So I think he's left them in a much better position than they were in.
Yeah,
Even
I
if you
agree,
include
I
the
agree.
Test cricket.
I agree. I think Bayliss has done a good job for the 4 years that he's taken over. He's won them the World Cup. He's of course they just missed out on the Ashes, but he's won them the World Cup, which is something the England team has been wanting for hundreds of years now. Not 100 years, 75 since the World Cup kind of started off. They've never won it, so it was nice for them to win that. And I'm intrigued to see who they announce as the replacement.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. That's for another day.
Yeah, and just on an ending note, I don't know if you read, there was an article on Steve Smith's ex-batting coach. His name was Trent Woodhill. He used to coach Smith in his early days. So he was basically saying, like, after the Ashes and stuff, he's basically saying, like, in Australia, they don't really accept the technique Steve Smith bats in. Like, he doesn't have an orthodox batting technique. Whereas in India, the unorthodox, like the likes of Sehwag, Ganguly and stuff, that's accepted. No one really cares as long as they're getting runs. So he's saying this is the big difference between Australian cricket and Indian cricket. Whereas in Australian cricket, you have to score runs, but it needs to look pretty. Whereas in India, it doesn't matter. It just comes. So Steve Smith and even the likes of David Warner, they're changing that now in Australian cricket. And he's saying that this will improve Australia as a team because it's just not, look at Steve Smith, his technique is completely off. But it's so effective. And in England, one thing which he said, which is very interesting, I don't know what you think about it, is that, like, when you're growing up, everyone says play with a straight bat, play in the V, mid on, mid off, clear it, right? Apparently, Steve Smith, if you notice his wagon wheel, he barely plays straight. He's playing square of the wicket. And according to his ex-batting coach, that's why him and the likes of Kohli, Williamson are more effective because they play more square of the wicket. If you play conventional, especially in England, the ball is seaming, you'll take your outside edge and you'll get caught off. And maybe this is a trick for English batsmen because, they're so proper and they're placed with a straight bat. Maybe this is something they can learn.
I haven't read that, but it seems like he's saying the exact thing that they need to hear.
Yeah.
Like I was actually thinking about this. I was noticing that he's not playing in the V a lot.
Yeah.
But I didn't put obviously that much thought into it, but.
Yeah.
It's quite evident that he was maybe because of his stance, because of the way he plays his cricket, he's very fidgety as a cricketer.
I noticed all that. Even I
Yeah.
didn't notice his exact shots. Like I've seen a couple of straight drives, but now when I went and looked back at his innings, he only has a couple. The rest are all square of the wicket. So
yeah, and he's always so fidgety. It's just like
Yeah.
he's turning around, he's moving around, he's opening his Velcro on his gloves,
Yeah.
keeps turning it back, he's moving his head. He needs a lot more of stamina, just not the cricket part. But
that's
all
also a
these
good
other
point.
small
Maybe when
things that
as he gets older, it might become more difficult for him to bat.
for him, yeah, I think so. It'll be interesting to see. I think him. Virat also, I think he puts in so much effort in every single game. Like even if you look at the T20s game that he plays, he's so much effort that goes into every single game.
Yeah.
I'm thinking there's going to be a point where maybe three, four. He's 29, I think. But there's probably
30.
3 or 4. He's 30 now. Okay,
Yeah.
so he has about 3, 4 years of this kind. But then he's going to have a decline. I think he probably has one more World Cup in him. To be very fair, I think 2023 will be. That's when I honestly think the amount of effort I would love to see him play for 10 years, but I just don't think it's going to happen with the amount of cricket, especially India plays. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to get difficult for these guys unless they have something in the bag that they have just not opened up for us, right?
Yeah, okay. No, that's very interesting conversation. It was lovely hearing your thoughts on the whole Ashes and everything else. We will come back next week and we'll look forward to the India South Africa series. Right now the T20s are going on. India won the first game.
Yeah.
We'll wrap up the T20 series next week and look forward to the test matches, and we'll talk more cricket next week. Hope to see you there. Thank you so much, and hope to see you next week.
See you, sir.
Take care.